Well, hello everybody. I hope you can hear me on my new equipment, which should, with any stroke of luck, make life a little bit easier for you to hear what's going on. I hope everybody's well. I hope everybody is surviving okay, enjoying the sunshine. One thing I would say is that I did actually listen back to some of last week's talk, and I can understand that it wasn't great, especially when I was playing the bird. That just didn't work at all. So I won't do that again. That was really unpleasant to hear that. It just was compressed far too much. So we won't do that again. And I'm also very aware that I have a ballet bar sticking out of my head. I'm afraid the ballet bar is still there. And it was also interrupted by various cats wandering around. So I hope that wasn't too disconcerting to see that. This week, you might see my wife doing a HIIT exercise on the patio instead of the cats. So I apologize for that. But hopefully we'll be reasonably undisturbed. One thing I was going to share with you, I don't know whether any of you were listening to the Today program this morning, but it caused quite a lot of controversy, I understand, due to the fact that they had their little bit at the end of the program where they had some culture for a very brief moment. And this morning, it was the turn of the wonderful violinist Tamsin Little. And unfortunately, she only got to play Somewhere Over the Rainbow for all of 15 seconds before the Pips came in and interrupted her. And some of my colleagues have been complaining on social media today, especially conductors for some reason, saying how insulting this was. I think, unfortunately, she did an interview first during which she explained how life was really tough for musicians like her, how CD sales have dropped hugely. And she said that all the streams that she's had on Spotify, and she's had a lot, several thousand, and she got a check for 6 months of streaming from Spotify for just over £12. So it just shows how tough life is, even for a top performer like her. So she did this wonderful interview. And by the time they'd done that, and then her daughter was playing the piano, accompanying her, and did a big introduction to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And that pretty much used up all the time. So it was a bit of a missed opportunity. But then there was also lots of comments, again on social media, from radio producers saying how hard it is. They're sitting at home, they're working from home, the presenters are working from home, the engineer is trying to link it all together from the studio in London, and it's absolute nightmare, and trying to time things is very, very difficult. So in spite of all the complaints, I think we ended up being quite sympathetic, and at least Radio 4 are doing something cultural, which is better than nothing. So anyway, today I thought we would do a little bit of a warm up, again, just to get the voice working. And I also thought it'd be a good idea to do today something that's going to help with getting the brain attached to the voice as well. So we do lots of these in our rehearsals. So why not do the ones that we're familiar with? Starting with the days of the week, for instance. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Sunday, Saturday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. And then we might do the alternate days. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday, Saturday, Thursday, Tuesday, Sunday, Friday, Wednesday, Monday. Then our old friend, the chicken tikka. chicken tikka mango chutney and a lager, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, naan bread pilau rice, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, naan bread pilau rice, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, naan bread pilau rice, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, naan bread pilau rice, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, chicken tikka mango chutney and a pint of lager, naan bread pilau rice. Quite enough of that. Good. One of the things I always forget to do is to breathe properly, especially if I'm sitting down playing the piano. So I apologize for that. I should be breathing much better than I am. Just as a counterweight to that, let's do something very, very smooth and very legato and try and work on our legato. So this is very simple falling exercise. So let's do that to open our nice open, lots of space, relax the jaw. And again. And let's do it to an eval. I'm going to do several of those in our own time. I don't know whether you remember, I'm sure you do, that terrible song I gave you last week. Mother's got a head like a ping pong ball. But I did say last week that we would try and do it again, leaving out some of the more difficult words. So I thought we might just try and have a go at that. So this is the whole song in all its wondrousness, with all the words, just to remind you how it goes. Mother's got a head like a ping pong ball. Mother's got a head like a ping pong ball. Mother's got a head like a ping pong ball, like a ping pong, like a ping, like a ping, like a ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong ball, like a ping, like a ping, like a ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong ball. Mother's got a head like a ping pong ball. Mother's got a head like a ping pong ball. Mother's got a head like a ping pong ball, like a ping pong ball. Okay, so now the challenge is on. Can we do that leaving out the pings? Let's have a go. I'll probably fail, but never mind. Mother's got a head like a pong ball. Mother's got a head like a pong ball. Mother's got a head like a pong ball, like a pong ball, like a pong 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 ball, like a pong pong ball. Mother's got a head like a pong ball. Mother's got a head like a pong ball. Mother's got a head like a pong ball, like a pong ball. For you, made it. How was that for you? I hope you're trying to do this as well, or you're just watching me make a complete fool of myself, thinking there's no way I'm going to do that, and I wouldn't blame you at all for that. Should we have another go, just in case we can encourage some others to take part without the pings? Mother's got a head like a pong ball. Mother's got a head like a pong ball. Mother's got a head like a pong ball, like a pong ball, like a pong 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 ball, like a pong ball. Mother's got a head like a pong ball. Mother's got a head like a pong ball. Mother's got a head like a pong ball, like a pong ball. Quite enough of that. Good. Now, today, I thought I would just start the process of trying to give you some ideas and suggestions for improving our sight singing. I know this is something that a lot of people are very aware that it's quite challenging, and some people, of course, have been doing it very successfully for years and years, and to others it's quite a new process, and they often say to me that any sort of help or assistance would be appreciated. So the first thing to say is that sight singing, like so many things, is really tricky when you first start. But the good news is that it does get easier, and the more you do of it, the easier it becomes. But one of the difficulties and one of the challenges, particularly in the early stages, is the fact that you've got to do two things. You've got to read the actual physical notation, the dots on the page, interpret those, and then convert those dots, convert that information into the actual sound, into the actual intervals in particular. And I'm talking mostly about pitch here rather than rhythm for the moment. As you probably know, when we are playing keyboards, pianos, organs, etc., very often, certainly speaking personally, I don't read all the notes. I don't actually physically look down the page at the two clefs or however many clefs it is and read every single note. I don't normally need to do that. Sometimes you do, particularly if it's a very modern piece or a very challenging piece, and you do actually have to read the notes. But normally you look at a chord or a selection of notes, and you can see from the shape, see from the pattern what those notes are and play them accordingly. So it's a kind of intelligent guesswork a lot of the time. But instrumentalists on the whole, because they're only playing one note at a time, they tend to read the actual pitch. And so they will see an A and they'll finger an A automatically. They don't have to think about it, and they may not even be aware what they're doing. It becomes a kind of subconscious process. But they still tend to read the actual notes and also look at patterns and see where it's going up or down and how far and so forth. But in general, what we need to do is to try and interpret what we see and convert it as quickly as possible into an actual interval, which is a real sound that we can have already stored in our heads. And that's the tricky bit. So if we're looking at a clef, if we're looking at, let's say, a treble clef, we know that what the notes are. If we need to know that, the bottom line is E and the next line up is G and so forth. And the spaces are F, A, C, and E. We can all learn that very easily. But recognizing the interval is a little bit more challenging sometimes. So it's worth remembering that if you're going from one space to the next space up or the next space down, doesn't matter which direction you're going in, if it's going from the adjacent space, the next one up, it'll always be a third. The same with two lines, two consecutive lines. If you're going from the bottom line E to the next line up G, that's always going to be a third. And the same applies if you go two lines up. So from the bottom line E to the middle line B is always going to be a fifth of some description. It could be a perfect fifth, it could be a diminished fifth, it could be an augmented fifth, but it will always be a fifth. So if you're looking at an interval and it looks as if it might be around about a fourth or a fifth, it's always worth remembering if it's line to line or space to space, it's going to be a fifth. If it's line to space or space to line, then it's going to be a fourth, if it's around that kind of area. So that's one tip which is always worth remembering. The other thing when it comes to notation, of course, is we tend, as I said, to have a system of patterns. And I'll give you an example of that in a moment. But before we move on to recognizing the patterns, I want to just talk about the actual business of thinking about what an interval sounds like. And here, there is no shortcut to just learning the sound of an interval. And the easiest way to do that, I think, is to have a melody, a tune that you can instantly recognize or have in your head, that you know that's what a third is, a major third or a perfect fourth or whatever. So it's a good idea to devise some melodies for each interval. For instance, that is in this case, C to A. It's a major sixth, and the easiest way that I find of remembering what that sounds like is to just think of the melody, my Bonnie lies over the ocean. So rising major sixth, you have my Bonnie lies over the ocean. A minor seventh, C to B flat is one tune that you could think of, but probably best if you devise your own melodies for each interval. Other ideas, you've had plenty of them. Perfect fourth, away in a major, lots of people use. Perfect fifth, Dear Lord and Father of Mankind, the very famous Parry tune. Lots of people use that. So if you can devise your own ideas for intervals that you can work out instantly, you think, ah, yes, that's what it sounds like. And then try going through the process when you've got nothing else to do. If you're sitting in the car or doing something where you can't make a noise, but you can be thinking, then just test yourself, thinking, okay, I'm going to imagine a note, doesn't matter what it is, and then I'm going to see if I can pitch a major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, whatever it is above that starting point. And by doing that regularly, you'll soon get to the point where you can instantly recall what any of these intervals sound like. And then once you've identified the interval from the score, you can immediately picture in your head, imagine in your head what that interval is going to sound like. But it is a complicated process, there's no doubt about it, because you're converting the notation into a sound. And doing that at speed is quite tricky. I've got an example here of a piece which I hope will illustrate some of these points. I don't know whether you can see this if I hold it up to the camera, probably not. This is the opening of Mozart's great C minor Mass. And I just want to point out, if I can show you this, here we have the first soprano lead starting on a C, and you can see it goes all the way up here and comes back down. So we go on to the next page, arriving back at a C there. Now, when you first look at that, if you're not a very experienced singer or very experienced musician, that looks pretty daunting in terms of having to sight read, because every single interval is either a third or a perfect fourth. We can just see that every single interval here, I hope you can see that, is either a third or a fourth. There are no consecutive intervals. There are no opportunities just for going to the next note up or the next note down. But when you've got some experience of doing this, you can see that he's actually all an arpeggio of C minor. So as soon as you've recognized that, if you know and have in your head what a C minor arpeggio sounds like, and all the parts do the same. That's the soprano part, the altos. Eleison, eleison. And the tenors do the same idea. Eleison. And the basses too. Eleison. They come in last, so they have the shortest passage. But it's just an example where having a little bit of knowledge, musical knowledge, really helps, because as soon as you can recognize that that is just a C minor arpeggio, it makes it so much easier to sing, rather than having to identify every interval, work it out, and then work out the next one, and so on. So I hope that's a little bit of help. I realize it's not a huge amount if you're finding sight singing challenging, but hopefully little bits being drifted in now and again will help you. And it's certainly a topic that we'll cover again and do it in more detail and so on. Time's moving on, so I just wanted to move on to my piece of the week. I hope those of you who listened to The Bird last week enjoyed it. If you were listening to Wojciech performance, which is just beautiful, sublime, and as I suggested at the time, having opportunity just to sing your part along with Wojciech is a wonderful thing to do, and also very good for your sight singing as well, because you're having to pitch for yourself, but you've also got a friend, a buddy, to help you with it. So for this week, I've moved on to a piece by Johann Sebastian Bach. And this is a piece, BWV 118, called O Jesu Christ, mein Lebenslicht, which is an extraordinary piece in many ways. It's quite short and it's not as well known as I think it deserves to be. And there's a reason for that. O Jesu Christ, mein Lebenslicht simply means Lord Jesus Christ, my life and light. It was written in 1736 or possibly 1737, around that time, written for a funeral. So it was probably some kind of commission, or at least Bach was asked to write it for a particular occasion. And this was a funeral that was taking place outdoors. And so he had the idea of using instruments that were suited for working out of doors. And he chose two distinctive brass instruments called the litui, which are now extinct. And nobody seems to quite know what litui were like or what they sounded like. They were some kind of quite loud, quite raucous, outdoor trumpet type of instrument. But as I say, they're completely extinct now. But it was written for these two litui, and then an accompanying ensemble of cornet and 3 trombones, plus 4-part choir. And the original, Martin Böhm, and he wrote no fewer than 14 verses of this text. So as it was a funeral procession, it could have gone on for quite a long time if there were 14 verses to sing. Normally now when it's performed, people only sing the first verse, you'll be glad to know, because of course they were all the same. But the slightly unusual thing is that for many years, for decades, and indeed centuries, it was classified as a cantata because it had an independent orchestral part as well as a part for the choir, when in actual fact, it is a motet. Bach even called it a motet. He put the word motet on the manuscript. But if you go or listen to the complete motets of Bach, there's Singet dem Herrn and Lobet den Herrn and all those, you will not find this piece included in the motets. Perhaps it should have been. And similarly, because it's such a short, rather insignificant little cantata, it's not normally related as one of the cantatas either. So it's kind of fallen between two stools. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's worth reviving. It's a very simple piece, as I say. It has this gentle orchestral accompaniment, even though it was designed for these rather raucous outdoor instruments. And later on, of course, Bach did actually transcribe it for strings and continuo, but he did keep the two litui, these two ancient brass instruments, interestingly. So the opening symphonia played by the instruments sounds like this. It has this constant throbbing march-like, funeral march-like bass line with lots of repeated notes and some quite smooth weaving of counterpoint between the two upper parts. That's the point where the choir come in, the SATB choir. And as you'd expect, they sing a really quite a simple chorale-like idea in 4 parts. The soprano part, the main melody of the chorale, is as simple as you can imagine. The lower parts, the alto, tenor and bass, are a little bit more complex than that, with a certain amount of weaving around. But the general principle of the vocal parts is very still, quite static, but still interesting, particularly harmonically. Near the end, for instance, of this very short piece, there's a wonderful feeling of rising chromaticism on the words, "By all my grievous sin oppressed." Gets quite juicy in harmonic terms. So if I just pick up from the end. And here with bass line. And then it returns to the opening sinfonia. And so on. It's a very simple piece, as I say, quite short, but well worth having a listen to. And as I say, it's quite an unusual piece that has been much neglected in my view. I think that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching, and look forward to speaking to you again next week. I see that the cat has made another appearance tonight, but I hope you haven't had any other distractions. Keep well, everybody. Thank you very much, and goodbye for now.